Hi guys, my name's Christine and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach, and today I'm talking about the moment they realize that they've lost you. Okay, so if this is an ex, or it could be someone that you're once interested in and they're no longer interested in you, once you've walked away, once you've gone into no contact, what basically happens with the person that you've walked away from, that you've started to do no contact with? What happens to that person? What happens to that ex? Right? What what is that, like, sort of like shifting moment where things can actually really change around for you, and they may even come back? So this moment is when you've walked away, and it's been like a good amount of time, because perhaps before you've done things where you have walked away from them, you have done no contact in the past, but maybe you've sort of broken no contact because you couldn't wait any longer, because maybe you hoped that things had changed. Because sometimes you can come across videos here on YouTube from dating coaches like myself who kind of give the wrong advice about no contact and about walking away. And the advice usually is that, you've got to wait like 30 days before you contact your ex, once you've walked away from them, once you've established no contact. Or you've got to wait like 45 days, or you've got to wait 6 weeks, or maybe it's like 2 months or something like that. The thing is with no contact and with walking away is that you have to do it in such a way that you are never going to come back, right? You're doing no contact for good, right? Because no contact isn't going to work if you're crossing off the days on your calendar. Thinking, okay, so right, we broke up on the 1st and I started no contact on the 2nd, so now I've got to wait this amount of days and I'm going to cross them off each day until I get to the day where I can finally contact them. Because what that does is that it keeps you stuck, and it also keeps you in false hope, because there is a chance that this person doesn't want to be with you anymore at all, right? So it's always best to walk away completely, so you then don't have that time suck, that time wasting time of hoping that they're going to come back, looking at your phone, and counting off the days until you can contact them again. It's just too much, and it's just a waste of time essentially, right? Because what you got to realize is that when you do no contact with someone, when you walk away from them for good, right, there's a chance that they may never come back, right? They may never miss you, but they may never see that loss, right? So when that kind of thing happens, is that, if you already walked away from them and you're already doing no contact with them, and you're trying to move on with your life, then it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, sure, it may suck if you never hear from them again, but there'll come a time when it will no longer bother you that you haven't heard from them, right? Because either you found someone better, or you're just in a lot happier place. Perhaps you realize that, you know what, yeah, that relationship wasn't for me, So it doesn't matter so much. But if you are still hung up on, okay, it's got to be this certain number of days, or you're just waiting by the phone because someone's told you that no contact will 100% work on them, when in reality it won't, if it's someone who no longer loves you, no longer cares about you. But, the opposite is also true of that. If this person does still care about you, the moment they realize that they've lost you, they're going to start to do something about it. They're going to re-add you. They're going to start to try and contact you. They're going to reach out to you. They're going to message you and things like that. So that's the moment that they realize they've lost you. The moment they realize they've lost you is the moment that they're going to start moving towards you in some way, right? And you may notice little clues to begin with, such as them re-adding you, or re-following you on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, or they may start doing little things like that. Perhaps they'll start watching your stories again. Perhaps they will start doing these little things, which may be an indication or a clue that they could be being drawn back into your life. Now, once these things start to happen, because it may be little clues at first like that, you still should stay in no contact. You should still be doing the process of walking away and moving on with your life, okay? Because sometimes an ex or someone like that can just re-add you or start looking at your stories because they're being nosy, because they're looking at what you're doing just because they're curious, okay? So that's not, because obviously what you don't want to do is them just to be curious and you to falsely think that, oh yeah, they want me again, and then to reach out to them and to realize that actually they didn't want that. They were just being nosy, or they weren't that interested for some whatever reason. They was, maybe it wasn't even them looking at your stuff. It may have been a friend or something like that. So what you've got to take seriously then, okay, is if they literally reach out to you, they message you first, right? Not you messaging them and then replying. It has to be a message from them, right? It could be a phone call. They may phone you up, okay? They may phone you, they may message you, okay? That's what you've got to take seriously. So when these little things start happening, like they add you, or they start watching your stories, or whatever it may be, they may start doing these little things on social media. They may unblock you if they blocked you. Don't get excited about that and fumble the football, basically, and mess up by messaging them when those little things happen, right? Once they realize that they've lost you, right, they will eventually reach out and message you. Because this happened to me with an ex, right? It'd been about 3 weeks since we'd stopped talking. She still wanted to be with me. And she re-added me on Facebook. That was the first clue to me that maybe she was changing her mind, even though I was the one that dumped her, but she still wanted to be with me. But she was starting to feel the loss, basically. That was the moment she realized that she could be losing me, so she tried to do something, so she re-added me first. I didn't do anything because, first of all, I wasn't really interested in getting back with her. I wasn't really interested in being in any kind of relationship with her at all. But I just added her because, well, I accepted the request because I didn't care as much anymore, basically. But eventually, after a few days of her re-adding me, she messaged me. And that's when I knew that she was still interested in me romantically, even though I wasn't interested in her anymore. So that's kind of the same sort of thing you're going to see with someone who does still love you, does care about you, does want the relationship to work out. They're going to do something like that. They're going to first test the waters a little bit by adding you, seeing if you accept, and then eventually they're going to reach out to you and message you, right? So that's what you've got to be looking out for, right? That's more of an indication that they do want to get back with you. If they reach out to you, if they send you a message, right? And like I said, it has to be them sending a message to you and not the other way around. Like, just because you've messaged them and you've got a response does not necessarily mean that they want to get back with you. It has to be them initiating. Okay, that's very, very crucial. Okay, so that's what's going to happen when they realize that they've lost you. They're going to take a step forward in your direction. Then obviously it's up to you what you want to do. Now, I always believe that an ex is an ex for a reason, that you shouldn't be getting back with people that it hasn't really worked out with, unless there was like a huge misunderstanding, right? Let's say like a third party got involved and they were whispering in your ex's ear about how bad you were, even though you didn't do anything wrong. Or perhaps your ex thought that you did something when you didn't actually do it. Like perhaps they thought that you cheated when you didn't, right? Things like that. And this has been like a huge misunderstanding, and it was down to a huge misunderstanding, then you shouldn't really be trying to get back with an ex, right? I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a healthy thing to do, because like I said, an ex is an ex for a reason. And what you got to really remember is when you've had that breakup and you're walking away from someone, you got to look back on the relationship. And what usually happens is that people look back on the good things. They look back to that honeymoon period, when you first got together, when you were just touching each other all the time and there was so much romance, you're doing so many things together. They look back on those things, those moments, right? But what you got to do, and what you've got to give more emphasis on, not equal emphasis, more emphasis on, you've got to focus on the bad things. Why did the breakup happen? Right? Was there a lot of arguments? Was there a lot of tears? Was there a lot of arguments? You got to think back to those last few months of the end of the relationship too. You've got to give that as much emphasis and more emphasis than the good stuff, right? You can't look back on it with nostalgia, because the moment you start doing that is the moment you're going to start wanting someone who perhaps you shouldn't really be wanting, okay? So it's really important that you do that, okay? And what else is really important too is that sometimes you've got to think about how you were feeling as well in that relationship. Right? Was you like secretly hoping that the relationship would end so you could get back to your old life? Was you secretly, would you secretly thinking, oh yeah, it would feel like a relief if this relationship was no longer happening, right? Because then I could do this, I could do that, I could focus on these things again. Right? If you were focusing on those things, if you were looking at those things like, oh yeah, it'd be really good if the relationship ended, or it would be quite nice to go back to my old life. Like if you were having those doubts in the relationship, and only you know how you were feeling in that time, right? If you were feeling that way, then it was probably a good idea that the breakup happened, right? And it may be that your ex picked up on the fact that you were kind of tuning out a little bit, that maybe they could even tell a little bit, maybe not even consciously tell, but subconsciously could tell that you were kind of clocking out, that you were no longer enthusiastic about them anymore, that you were kind of hoping that things would end. And they basically were the first one to just bite the bullet and end it, right? Especially, this is obviously goes for people who got broken up with, right? If you got dumped, it could be the fact that they thought that maybe you were going to dump them because you weren't putting in the effort anymore, right? And that may have been why they broke up with you, or one of the reasons that contributed to that. They just wanted to be the first one to do it, right? So that's something that you really got to take into consideration, how you were feeling, right? And you have to be honest with yourself, because right now you might be thinking, no, I didn't want the things to end, because you've been looking back at the relationship with nostalgia, thinking about the good times. But if you really focus on the bad times and how you were feeling around those bad times, you probably will find that you found that things weren't great for you either, that you kind of wanted things to end. Maybe you were even fantasizing about other men, other women, whatever it may be, right? And if that's the case, then it's probably a good idea that things ended. So even if they do come back, right, will you want them, right? Because at this point in your life, it may be a good idea that you walk away, that you go into no contact with them, that you stay in those things and you try to move on with your life and maybe try and find someone better. But obviously give yourself an appropriate amount of time to heal, because it's not always a good idea. Because if you don't give yourself an appropriate amount of time to heal after a relationship, what you're doing is you're essentially bringing old baggage into a new relationship. So you kind of need time to just sort of process the things that have happened to you, so you don't repeat the same mistakes in a new relationship. Even if you didn't make many mistakes in that relationship, even if they were like 99% to blame for the whole thing, there was still that 1% that you was in control of, that perhaps you could have done better in. And we all know, we can all look back on our lives and relationships and realize what we did right, what we did wrong, what we would do differently. And it's always a good idea to have that time to reflect, so you don't make those same mistakes in a new relationship, which is why you need a bit of a break once, a break from relationships once once a relationship has ended. Okay, so you don't make those same mistakes. So once you've had that period of time where you know you're not going to make those mistakes again, and you've really worked on those things, and you basically you have a good awareness of what you did right and what you did wrong, then once you get into a new relationship, you're unlikely to make the same mistakes again. And that's when you know basically that you're ready for a new relationship. If you know those things, if you know what you did right, if you know what you did wrong, you're aware of those things, and you know you're not going to make them again. And also, you also know if you're ready for a new relationship if you don't feel as intensely anymore about the old relationship that you're in. If you don't feel as intensely about your ex anymore, it's not bothering you, it's not keeping you up at night anymore. You kind of feel a bit, blasé about it. Basically, you're not too fussed. Basically, how you may some old emotions may still stir up. That's just that happens to me when I think about old exes. Like if a song comes on the radio and it reminds me of them, and I'm kind of like, oh, kind of cringe, or whatever it may be, right? That you're always going to have moments like that, where you see something and it may remind you of an ex. That's not what I'm talking about. You're not just going to get amnesia and forget about them. But essentially, what happens is that it no longer bothers you. The fact that they're gone no longer bothers you. It's not making you cry anymore, or whatever it may be, right? You don't feel as angry anymore. It could be any of those emotions. So if you don't feel like that anymore, then you know that you're ready for a new relationship. And if you can find someone who is like a complete upgrade for your ex, because you always want to upgrade, you never want to downgrade. If you find someone who is better looking than your ex, although that's not as important, but it can help, right? Someone who's better looking than your ex, someone who has a better personality, someone maybe who's got better prospects in life. Perhaps they're a bit more wealthier, or perhaps they're a bit more ambitious, or they're just more interesting, whatever it may be for you, whatever your preferences are. But if you can find someone who's a way better, not a version of your ex, but just an upgrade from your ex, like someone who's just way better in all categories, basically, or most categories, because you might not find someone who's perfect. But if you can find someone who's a total upgrade, then you're probably not going to be as bothered anymore about your ex, especially if they rock your world in bed too. If you can find someone who can, like, you have a really good sexual relationship with, that really, really helps too, right? If you can find someone who's just way better in bed, things like that. Those are the things that are really going to like help you forget about your ex and not be as bothered about anymore. So if you're in this new fantastic relationship and you've met this new fantastic person, and your ex reaches out to you, you're probably just going to ignore it, right? So that's why it's always a good idea to focus on finding someone new and getting over that relationship. But what you've got to realize is that the moment they realize they've lost you, right, and this is the whole point of this video, is your ex will start to do things to try and test the waters, to step forward into your, just take a step forwards into your direction, basically. Maybe them adding you, doing things like that, and obviously they reach out to you as well. Eventually they message you. But that's what you've got to be looking out for, okay? So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally and you'd like coaching with me, then please go to www.christinelovridge.com, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.